Welcome back to a Slice of News, where I cut you off a slice of news. Kristi Noem is out as head of Department of Homeland Security. I figure there's not much point in bearing the lead. She did not last long in the position, but that doesn't come as much as a surprise, and she was very clearly massively underqualified for the job, and it was also very clear she had no idea what she was doing. On the one hand, being unqualified for the position is practically a requirement in the current administration. I think you'd be hard pressed to find anyone in high positions within the Trump White House that actually do have the qualifications to do the job that he's placed them in. It's become abundantly clear the only qualification that matters to the president is loyalty. As long as they do what he tells them and are blindly loyal to him, he'll make sure they can sit in the big chairs. That fact is already bad enough, just in a general sense, but when it comes to the Department of Homeland Security, having someone at the helm that is not qualified and is not competent is dangerous. Our national security should not be in the hands of someone who is not immensely competent and qualified. But during her time as the head of the department, that's exactly what we had. Kristi Noem was bad at her job, but she did what she was told, and that's pretty much all the president needed to let her stay. As tensions regarding ICE ramped up following the murders of Renee Good and Alex Preddy, her response was to brand them as homegrown terrorists and essentially justifying their killing. She virtually decimated FEMA, costing them nearly a third of its staff and many of its most experienced leaders, which caused massive delays in disaster relief to areas hit by natural disasters over the summer. She justified the cuts in the name of efficiency and cutting down on waste, but all it managed to do was make it so the agency could barely do its job properly. As the head of Homeland Security, it was clear she was making things worse in an effort to look competent. She was only casting an even larger spotlight on just how incompetent she truly was. After a while, her loyalty to the president and his agenda was not enough to keep herself in the president's good graces. He mandated a daily quota of 3,000 immigration arrests, but Kristi Noem couldn't manage to keep those numbers consistent. And as we all know, consistency is key. So when they were regularly falling short of these quotas, the president was starting to lose his patience with her. With the president so obsessed with image and looking good, missing those arrest goals were making him look bad, and that could not stand. I'm certainly not sad to see Kristi Noem go. While she was heading the department, they were posting on social media constantly very ultra-patriotic, borderline white nationalist posts. And you'd see them, you know exactly who they were talking to. It was all about taking back the homeland and reclaiming the way things used to be. A lot of them, if you switched out the English text for German, you would swear was coming out of 1930s Germany. They really seemed like a bad look, but they were going out with the approval of her as the head of the department. So if taking her out means less of those types of posts, I'm all for it. Kristi Noem ran the department poorly, partially I think because she was someone who wanted to look like she was doing a good job without actually knowing how to do the things that actually would make her do a good job. Which I suppose in and of itself isn't all that surprising since, as I mentioned before, she was wildly unqualified for this position. So maybe struggling to be competent in that position is actually to be expected. And I guess given that fact, we are all fortunate that it didn't turn out worse than it actually did. Internally, it seems she was known for mismanaging her staff and constantly being at odds with the heads of other departments. So as bad as she seemed from the outside, apparently on the inside she was just as bad, if possibly not even worse. She was so bad that reportedly when it was announced that she was being let go from her position, multiple staffers inside FEMA headquarters actually cheered at the news. You have to hand it to her. You have to be pretty bad for people who work under you to literally celebrate when the news breaks that you're being fired. What's interesting, though, is that it was not her multiple incompetences that led her to lose the job in the first place. It's clear the president's willing to tolerate incompetence as long as they still continue to make him look good. But then Kristi Noem performed one of the greatest sins in President Trump's eyes. She contradicted him. During a recent appearance before the House Judiciary Committee, she was questioned about a $220 million ad campaign and how it was the department was spending so lavishly when she was claiming to be committed to rooting out waste and overspending in her position as the head of the department. And that's where it all went wrong for her. She was asked if the president knew and approved of that massive spending on the campaign, to which she responded in the affirmative, saying, yes. And this was a problem because the president had previously said that he didn't know about it and he wasn't thrilled with it. Now, it would not shock me if he actually did previously give his okay and did approve of it, but now that he'd come out publicly saying he didn't, her saying that he did was a problem. The president expected from her what he expects from all of his loyalists, for them to lie and say whatever it is that he says so that their message is consistent. So when they don't toe the party line at every opportunity, getting fired is what happens. The president was reportedly, quote, pissed that she had undermined his narrative, so she was as good as gone. Her firing came so abruptly that she was actually on her way to deliver remarks at a police officer conference in Nashville, Tennessee. So she had to get up in front of all these policemen and make all her pre-planned remarks like she's still the head of Homeland Security, all the while knowing she had just been fired and everyone else just hadn't found out yet. But I guess if you're worried about poor Kristi Noem and what she'll do now that she's been ousted from her position, fear not. The president has appointed her the Special Envoy for the Shield of the Americas, a title that seems entirely made up, mostly because I think it is, because previous to this, I don't think that position even ever existed, but at least now she was out of the president's way. What exactly she'll do in her new position is unknown, but likely still eat up taxpayer funds that could be going to something actually useful. As head of the Department of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem was all image and no substance. So I guess it makes sense she's now put in a position that is also all image and no substance. Now that we know at least in part what's next for Kristi Noem, now that she's out at Department of Homeland Security, the question is what is next for the department without Kristi Noem in it? Her replacement, Mark Wayne Mullen, is likely not any more qualified or competent at the job as she was, but he's also likely not to publicly make the same sorts of mistakes that she did, so his time in the position may very well last longer than hers. But in reality, the answer is probably that not a whole lot is going to change when it comes to what DHS actually does. The operations likely stay just as they have been, and any hope that Homeland Security was somehow going to get better now that Kristi Noem was no longer at its head is probably going to be dispelled pretty quickly. It's also possible that part of the president's strategy, if you can even call it a strategy, of getting Kristi Noem out of Department of Homeland Security was because there was already a push from Democrats to have her impeached. So if he took her out himself, she couldn't be impeached because impeachment of one of his heads of department would look very bad for him. He very much does not like it when things look bad for him. Once again, it seems it always comes back to optics. In a way, it's a shame that Kristi Noem has been ousted from her position, because every time she would go in front of a camera, she served as a perfect embodiment of everything that is wrong with the current administration. She'd always come off as disingenuous and fake, all style, no substance, exemplifying looking like you're doing your job without actually doing your job, basically being a fake success. And that is exactly what the Trump administration has been in this second term. Fake success, but full of failure when you really drill down into it. And while I'm sure her replacement will carry on her legacy of running the department terribly and making awful decisions that will negatively impact all of us, he just won't be as flashy and obvious about it as she was. When the president tells him what to do, he'll do it, but won't spend $200 million on an ad campaign in the process. I think that's one of the things that tempers my enthusiasm over the news that Kristi Noem has been removed. Yes, she's gone. Yes, that's good. But we're not going to be better off with her replacement. Things are not going to get better for the average American just because she's gone. In fact, there's an outside chance things may even get worse since there's no way to know what exactly she will be doing in her new role and what sort of power it will give her. I suppose assuming it grants any power at all. Kristi Noem was a public face for a lot of the incompetence and poor management of the Trump administration, and ultimately that may be what got her sacked in the first place. The president wants the public perception to be he's doing good, his administration is doing good, and everything is very great under the Trump administration. But she kept breaking that narrative, so she had to go. So she could be replaced by someone a little bit more nondescript while still doing exactly what she was doing while she was in that position. While we don't know for sure what the future of the Department of Homeland Security is under her replacement and what changes he may bring, one thing we do know is that Kristi Noem's time as department head of Homeland Security is as dead as that dog she shot that one time. Alright guys, that'll be it for this episode of A Slice of News. I've been your host, Mr. Slice. Until next time, when I cut you off, another slice of news. And don't forget to rate and review the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you find it.